The first question I asked them is, what are they concerned about with regard to their granddaughters? And they told me things like what you see on the slide here. They're worried about her confidence. They're worried about the lack thereof and the social anxiety she finds and sometimes wanting to hide when in groups. They're worried about depression and self-doubt and insecurity and self-consciousness. And this tendency of middle school girls that we've seen across generations now, of girls in that age group when they hit puberty starting to go silent in school. Their young, feisty, sassy selves start to feel more insecure and less willing to raise their hands and less willing to use their voices to speak up. And some of these grandmothers were concerned about the family strife that they were seeing in their daughters' families, with things like divorce happening or substance abuse or just parents working so very hard to make ends meet that it creates a lot of stress in the home. Those are things that worry grandmothers. They're concerned about media influences, as many of us are. They are concerned about their granddaughters being exposed to mature topics, perhaps too early, and perhaps an emphasis in our society with TikTok and Instagram and the emphasis on being an influencer, with their granddaughters thinking about being famous and showy rather than maybe just feeling good about who they are and doing good things in the world. They're also worried about safety concerns. Is my granddaughter safe at school? What's going to happen? What could happen? They're concerned about the bullying and trauma that gets reported and the vulnerabilities of just simply being a girl in the world. Girls are often trained to be nice and polite over setting appropriate boundaries with their bodies and their words and their time. And this worries grandmothers because it's something that we know in our generation all too well. We were hoping it was getting better for them. Maybe it is, but sometimes maybe it isn't. Grandmothers are concerned about the education system, this online tendency that has cropped up as a necessary solution during COVID, but still is being used sometimes for various reasons in schools, sometimes because of safety, sometimes because of weather, and sometimes parents are just afraid to send their kids back to school because of some of the safety concerns. And grandmothers are worried about the education system in general because schools that have been so pressured to be all things to all people all the time are facing all of the challenges that our society sees, and teachers are being asked to do too much. So it's worrisome to my generation about what it is that our younger generation is experiencing through no fault of the teachers who are working so hard to be all things to all people all the time. One grandmother mentioned the fact that the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until age 25. And that behooves us to recognize that we need to be around, the adults need to be around to support our young people in making decisions, giving them more and more opportunities to make decisions on their own, and yet be there to help them think through the decisions and not leave them on their own, presuming that they are young adults and old enough to make life decisions that maybe they're not ready for yet. There's some evidence that our society might be going backwards in some ways. We've seen that. Maybe they won't have the same rights that we did as young people, that we assumed we had as women. That's of great concern to grandmothers. And the tendency in our society to point fingers and blame others rather than learn and take responsibility for our mistakes and learn from it and own up when we might fumble on occasion. There are barriers that face us: prejudice, bias, financial barriers, and for some, even early motherhood. So these are the things that are on their mind, but there's a lot of data out there that actually confirms those worries.